the one in which a game of truth or dare turns deadly. Previously on Supernatural, we saw the brothers doing their thing, and they encountered an air passenger who had been possessed by a demon. And our previously on segment is the same set of clips telling the story of what's going on so far. You're listening to the Supernatural First Watch podcast, a rewatch podcast designed to be spoiler-free and enjoyed as if it's your first watch. I'm your host, Kimberly, a self-proclaimed sci-fi and fantasy nerd, and let's dive into this week's episode of Bloody Mary. In Toledo, Ohio, there are 3 preteen girls playing Truth or Dare. Apparently, if you say the words Bloody Mary 3 times in front of the mirror, bad things will happen. They're having fun playing the game when they're interrupted by the dad who's hosting the sleepover, telling them to keep it down. Of course, like all preteen girls everywhere, they ignore him until the older sister comes home and goes searching for her father, where she finds him in a pool of blood. Cut to the Impala, where Sam is once again dreaming about Jessica, exactly what happened to her, but he's not sharing with Dean. They're already on the case and head over to the morgue to try and spin the tale of being university students that for some reason need to see the body. The attendant's not buying it, but a nice little bit of cash means they are able to go in and see the body, and they're not really sure what happened or what might have caused it, but the skull is full of blood and the eyeballs have liquefied. So they head off to crash a wake, I believe for the first time, and while there, they split up. Dean goes to check out the upstairs with his handy-dandy EMF while Sam circulates and talks with all of the friends. While having a chat, the preteen girl from the opening, Lily, shows that she feels responsible for her death because she's the one who said the phrase, and her older sister, of course, is not buying it. Sam heads back upstairs to find him, to find Dean and see if they have any sort of leads, and nothing's pinging on the EMF reader so far, and they get interrupted by Charlie, who is a friend of the older sister. She calls them out and says, "You probably did not work with their dad," but agrees that something is weird about the death, and they exchange phone numbers. Later that night, Charlie is talking to another friend who decides that it'll be so much fun to invoke Bloody Mary in front of the mirror. While on the phone, nothing happens, but shortly thereafter, we see the friend watch her visage break and hear the phrase, "You did it, you killed that boy," in which Jill's eyes start bleeding, and of course she dies. Charlie reaches out to let Sam and Dean know what happened and is super, super freaked. They break into Jill's bedroom with Charlie's help and turn on to their old school technology of the digital camera that has night vision, which apparently also works like a blacklight and showcases blood dripping from the mirror. They turn it around and find out that there is a name inscribed on the back of the mirror. Apparently, Sam shares that mirrors are seen as a true reflection of your soul, which is really why it's bad to break the mirrors. Dean is back at it, researching, trying to find out exactly what happened and why these names are linked to the victims. And he uses his handy-dandy portable printer inside of the hotel. He finds a potential, which is Mary Worthington. It's a murder, but it's an old tale. But they decide, you know what, it's nearby, so they'll go ahead and speak to the detective who was investigating Mary Worthington's death. Mary was 19 when someone broke into her apartment, murdered her, and cut out her eyes with a knife. Fun story. But before she died in front of her mirror, she tried to spell her killer's name, and they go to investigate further around why her spirit might be trapped in the mirror, because she was cremated. Once again, we hear the phrase salt and burn, but there's no body to burn because it was already burned. Once again, Charlie's with another friend, and she decides that there hasn't been enough death around her, even though her father was one of the victims. So she invokes Bloody Mary. Charlie is noticeably completely freaked out. She seeks out Sam and Dean again because apparently she had a boyfriend who threatened to kill himself if she left, and when she did, he committed suicide. Sam and Dean put her up in the hotel room where all of the reflective surfaces are covered up and go to try and figure out how to destroy Mary. They decide they need to summon her, and Sam offers to do it because it seems like she's targeting people who have deaths associated with a secret. But Dean is not there for this. He argues with his brother and admits that he feels responsible for Jessica's death as well. I'm a little confused by this point because both of them have now admitted that they feel responsible for the death, but summoning Mary still works. After summoning, they break into the original mirror where they believe Mary Worthington has her spirit stored in an antique shop, and do the summoning. Even though neither of them are super agreeable about this process, they think it's the only way to stop the killings. So while they do the summoning, of course, the cops show up, and Dean goes out to chat them and distract them while Sam watches the mirror waiting for his eyes to start bleeding. His reflection accuses him of being responsible for Jessica's death and tells the audience that he actually had nightmares about how she would die for days beforehand, but decided not to warn her. Dean, meanwhile, is confronting the cops and decides that he doesn't have the time to really do so or talk his way out of it, so he just punches their lights out and comes back in to save Sam just in time from being completely murdered by Mary in a long, drawn-out death scene, unlike every other person we've seen succumb to Mary's power. After smashing a whole lot of mirrors, which they both agree means lots and lots of years of bad luck, Mary actually emerges from the frame and tries to kill Dean and Sam. Using her own story and legend against her, Dean shows Mary her reflection, who accuses her of killing people, and then she self-destructs. Then, of course, Dean smashes another mirror. The boys decide to take Charlie home, and Sam tries to placate her and tell her not to feel guilty over her boyfriend's death because there's no way she could have prevented it and she's not responsible. Dean tells Sam that, that's really good advice, and because the crisis is over, Dean asks Sam to reveal the secret so it can't be used against them in the future, and Sam, of course, is not here for it. And he glimpses Jessica actually on the street in a long nightgown before the car drives off into the sunset. So the local legend is a local legend supposedly many people have actually heard, and that the idea is if you invoke Mary's name, Bloody Mary, 3 times in front of a mirror, she will murder you. And apparently this is fun and exciting, so it's a popular game for sleepovers around the world. I personally had not actually heard of this, but I had heard the phrase Bloody Mary before, but I was always thinking it was in reference to Queen Mary, who decided to murder a bunch of Catholics, or Protestants, one of those. Who are we this week? This week, Dean and Sam try to impersonate students at a university who need to see a body and get nowhere with it, and they try to impersonate friends of the father when they crash a wake and also get caught at it. Apparently, they're not so great at coming up with aliases that don't get questioned so far. They've already been busted in previous episodes for not being wildlife, fish and wildlife, and they've already been busted almost for not being Homeland Security, but they don't actually get caught that time. So far, coming up with aliases they're not very great at yet. Mary is essentially a vengeful spirit, and we don't actually hear about other supernatural options. The brothers at first are not entirely sure what's going on. So fail to speculate about other supernatural bodies, but they do think that something is weird. This episode has 7 deaths. So the body count is quite high, even though that includes Mary Worthington, who's the actual spirit who has become the Bloody Mary legend. Unlike a lot of legends that we've heard so far, this one is a little bit more recent. How to kill it. Apparently, once again, we get the salt and burn idea, but of course, Mary's body has already been burned, so sometimes spirits can inhabit an object associated with their death, like the mirror that she died in front of. Destroying said object is a way to destroy the spirit. However, smashing it is all they do, so that is very interesting, and they do have to summon her to do so. So this episode is another one of your Monster of the Week episodes. There's a couple of things that make me go, in it, but overall, it's just your general Monster of the Week. We do get hints as to the bigger story in that Sam actually knew or suspected something was going to happen to Jessica. It explains a lot about why he was angry that Dean came to the house, because he was already getting glimpses of getting back into the supernatural and hunting lifestyle, which of course he was completely uninterested in doing. Sam also feels incredibly guilty because he decided that his happiness and the normal life apple pie lifestyle was more important than telling his girlfriend he was having visions or nightmares about her death. Of course, if you're a normal person and you've got these types of nightmares, most of us wouldn't think anything of it. It's just our brain playing tricks on us. But Sam carries the guilt for not warning Jessica and not talking to her at all about the supernatural. Dean, of course, feels guilty because he took Sam away from what could have been her last few days on Earth. Sam, of course, does not blame Dean, which is actually a little bit surprising considering how not happy he was to see his brother or to go looking for their father at all. Overall, not much happens to an overall story arc, and this is your run-of-the-mill episode. An interesting cast of characters, and it is absolutely trope-tastic because despite all of the deaths that have already happened, you still see a number of people continue to say the phrase Bloody Mary, which results in their own death. A little bit of a reversal of the trope is that by saying the phrase, it doesn't always affect the person who said it. It can affect people associated with them, going so far as to having a friend, not even a family member, say it, and then Charlie, of course, becomes a victim of the spell. Another interesting piece on this I find is that I would argue Charlie is in no way responsible for her boyfriend's death, simply because he decided to commit suicide. And no one person can be responsible for the livelihood or continued happiness of another. So somebody choosing to commit suicide, especially somebody who just wanted the other person to stick around, there was no abuse, there was no violence, there was no bullying that was happening from one person to another. But apparently in the supernatural and spirit world, there's not much of a gray area. So even though I don't believe Charlie is responsible for her boyfriend's death, and one would expect as well, many people do know that Charlie's ex-boyfriend committed suicide. So that piece is not the secret. It's more that she feels responsible and did not tell anyone. Now, the hit and run, absolutely, 100%. That is the victim. And I would say that aligns with the legend in which if you have a secret about a death and are responsible for it, Mary can decide to haunt you. But this also raises questions, considering I don't believe that Charlie is responsible for her boyfriend's death. It raises the question of, did their mom, Linda Shoemaker, did she commit suicide? Was she driven to it by her husband? Did he actively take a role? Or does he just feel guilty for maybe not being there when she chose to, not being there when she died? That is one of the big outstanding questions I have about this, especially since we get the example of a hit and run where somebody is most definitely responsible versus feeling guilty because you left because somebody was not safe for you to be around, and then they chose to commit suicide. So this brings into that shades of gray area around the supernatural and where fault actually lies in particular what we call less meditated crimes. Technology in the new age. At the time, digital cameras were rare and expensive, but the brothers have one, and it has a night vision mode. Not entirely sure if night vision and black light actually means the same thing, but it's enough for them to see the blood spatter below the mirror when they do it through a digital camera. Also, I think it's super awkward to try and walk around a crime scene with a digital camera and such a small display that you need to be viewing. And I can't imagine any type of crisis situation where they would be able to use that device. Obviously, it's fine for research, but it would be a horrible way, I think, to try and hunt something that shows up in night vision mode that you can't see with the naked eye, for example. Also, Dean makes use of a portable printer inside their hotel room, which I'm very curious to know if that even existed at the time. So I looked it up, and apparently the first portable printer was available starting in 1968, but I'm very curious as to how widespread they were in 2005 when this happened. Not a technology observation, but an observation of having things available that aren't actually true. Dean is going through actual physical books that for some reason have a bunch of local deaths listed in them. That makes me wonder really about how that is the case. I don't know of any books that you can find that have local deaths that are very, very recent. Like sometimes some famous murders and that type of thing you would find, but just regular books you don't usually see. Of course, newspapers and public records. How do you decide what to actually search for to find the things you're looking for that scream supernatural? I'd be very curious to know about, like, crash course, how to do that. Where in the world are Sam and Dean? This episode takes place in Ohio, and the story of Mary Worthington, I looked it up, is actually 1 hour and 40 minutes away. But in the show, of course, it's depicted as if they just hopped on over to the neighboring town. It's actually a 3-hour round trip to go and talk to this guy in person. But it also does make sense that the mirror did not go far from the scene of the death. However, could cause issues in a town where she wasn't actually there. Another curious piece on this as well is what caused the story to become true. They speculate, of course, that her being removed from the family and being sold to an antique shop, it was enough. But I would also expect that if she had been trapped in the mirror, and already having the power of the Bloody Mary story, I would expect that there would have been stories of it, of the town where she stayed for however many years between that and between the murder and becoming the projection of the spirit that was causing all of these problems. In the family business, Dean and Sam seem to be getting along just fine. However, Dean knows that Sam is keeping secrets. He's becoming increasingly worried about Sam seeming to wake up from nightmares, but he doesn't know what they're about. And Sam is most definitely keeping secrets, as we see, because he was seeing visions of Jessica's death for weeks before she actually died, but he is not sharing with the family. No real check-in on the search for Dad, except that he's not around and they don't know why. So in conclusion, not much exactly happens in this episode. It is just another kind of run-of-the-mill monster of the week, and it's incredibly tropey. Tropes, of course, we have the blood dripping from the eyes. We have the people who ignore their good sense and continue to do something they've heard that other people are dying from, and a whole lot more. Overall, a nice episode, fun. It's not slow, it's not exciting, but it's interesting, of course, to know. And the questions to contemplate for the future are, why was Sam seeing these nightmares before Jessica died? What significance does it have that he sees her standing on the sidewalk as they drive past her, but she's not dead that time? And of course, when will Dean find out, or will he, that Sam had been having these nightmares, and what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Really great contemplation questions for now. And up next, our next episode will be an episode titled Skin. So that's where we're at on the road so far, and I will see you on the road next week.